Why are so many people in the raw feeding community against hybrid diets like a mixture of raw and canned food, for example, or cooked and raw? So this question comes from one of my amazing members, Donna, and she mentioned that in a lot of raw feeding Facebook groups or communities, people will ask questions about wanting to feed raw, wanting to add raw to their cat's diet, and maybe they say, I can't do 100% raw, but like I want to add some raw, I want to add some fresh food to my cat's diet. And they feel a little bullied, they feel a little like the response from the raw feeding community, people in that community, they feel that the response is like, well, if you can't do 100% raw, you might as well quit. They feel like it's 100% raw or nothing. And you're not getting the support that you need. You want to feed some fresh food, you want to upgrade, you know that raw is great, but you just can't do 100%. And it's frustrating because you kind of feel like, okay, well, I'm not getting the support that I need, and that kind of just left a bad taste in my mouth. So like, is this really even worth it? Is raw, like, it's just tough. It's tough because, and I know how you feel because, not that people were telling me this, but when I first started feeding Jericho raw about 7 years ago, I didn't have a community. There weren't videos like this, at least that I knew about. And I had to figure it all out on my own. But that's what led me to where I'm at today. So I'm grateful for that. But I want to talk about this comment and kind of address my thoughts on it, where I stand on it, why other people might, think this, and talk about different extremes that I've done in my diet and Jericho's diet and how I've found a good balance. So first of all, I don't believe that it has to be 100% raw or nothing. I'm a big supporter of finding a feeding plan that works for your individual cat and for your situation. Now, I am catmatic instead of dogmatic. I am catmatic about cats not eating dry food. And if you're here, you already know that. So I do draw the line there. But if feeding raw alongside a good quality canned food makes it more manageable for you, or if feeding a little bit of home cooked food and canned food makes it easier for you, then do that. Because any type of homemade DIY food, as long as it's properly balanced and you're, following food safety, anything DIY is going to be better than anything pre-made, simply because you have more control over the ingredients, where you're buying those ingredients, the quality of those ingredients, how you're making it, and we have no control over what other companies do. So I do believe that a home-cooked meal is still better than pre-made raw, simply for that reason. You have more control over everything, and the more control you have, the better. For Jericho's diet, I do feed a hybrid diet. Yes, technically it is all raw, but it isn't 100% in one category. My carnivore diet has evolved a lot. It's only been, 2 years. But in the beginning, sometimes you do have to go extreme just to figure out what works for you. So, Jericho's meowing. He doesn't like when I film, so he left me, but then he was meowing, come back in. So, come lay down if you want, okay? You can make a video with me, talk about your diet. Okay, so where we left off. So first I'll talk about from a business standpoint. So maybe it's a business owner like I am, somebody teaching you, or it's a content creator, talking about raw. So the difficult thing here is it might seem like they're 100% raw or nothing, but they might feel the same way that I do. It's difficult when you have a business, when you're creating content, when you're trying to find people that want what you have, to offer, whether it's products, services, or you're just, making content for fun. It's difficult because everybody tells you to stick to one thing. That way, when your ideal people find you, they know right away, you're for me. So in the beginning, I was talking about a lot of raw. Actually, in the beginning, technically, I talked about how to read labels, and then I kind of transitioned into talking about raw because that's what I was feeding Jericho. And I kind of got on this, I actually got a similar content, like this is what I hate about, or comment rather, this is what I hate about you raw feeders is either 100% raw or nothing. And then I kind of went into a spiral of like only talking about commercial cat foods. And I didn't really like it that much just because that's not what I feed Jericho, that's not what I want to talk about. But I know that those videos are helpful because then you can find something that works for your cat. But I am moving more towards a more holistic approach because hybrid diets, I think, are great. So as for people in raw feeding communities, non-business people, you're in a Facebook group and there's, you know, the admins and then the other people who are in there because they feed raw. I mean, I don't really know. I'm not in these groups, so I can't really explain it. The only thing I can think of is that people are just extreme in their opinions based on their own experience, based on things that have happened to them. For example, I am very extreme about not feeding dry food. The only time that I would ever feed dry food is if I just adopted a cat, the cat is eating dry food at the shelter, and then I'm going to bring the cat home. There should be some consistency there. While the cat adjusts to the new home, I would feed the same exact food, and then once the cat is adjusted, I would upgrade. And that's what I did with Jericho. He came to me eating those big, like, soup can Friskies, pate mush. So that's what I fed him when he came here. He adjusted quickly, and then from there, I gradually upgraded his food, and that's when I was learning how to read labels. And side note, the canned food that I fed him, that I upgraded to from Friskies, fed him canned food. They don't make cat food anymore. Then I went to the Honest Kitchen dehydrated food. I rehydrated it, and then I started adding raw to his diet, and that was Rad Cat. They went out of business. They don't make cat food anymore. The next one that I found, there weren't as many options back then. If you think there's no options for cats now, 7 years ago there was way fewer. The next one called Balanced Blends, they only had 2 proteins, whereas Rad Cat had like 6 or 7 for cats. Lots of synthetic supplements in Balanced Blends, whereas Rad Cat was like whole food nutrients and just minimal supplements like my recipes are. Balanced Blends, they don't make cat food they don't make food for cats anymore. So 3 different brands. And that's exactly why DIY, I believe, is the best, because you have more control over it. But again, knowing how to read labels and knowing what to look for, what to avoid, that way if you have to feed some commercial food or want to feed more commercial food with a DIY option, you know, that's why learning to read labels is so important. So as for extremes with people in communities and groups, I think maybe it's just based on the experience that they've had. Like, I am very adamant about not feeding dry food because I've had so many cats that had health issues. And not only my cats, when I was a cat sitter as well. Diabetes and, you know, needing fluids, needing pills because of urinary issues, and they're eating dry food. To me, it's just so far out of the question, it just does not make sense. So I'm adamant about that based on my experience, both personally and professionally. But as it is with 100% raw or nothing, you know, again, if you feel more comfortable feeding a cooked homemade diet, then do that. Like, that's still way better because you have control over the ingredients and how it's made. And control over the cost, right? I mean, there's just a lot. So I told this story about Jericho's food just now to wrap it up. That's why DIY is so important to me, because those 3 brands that I fed all went out of business, don't make cat food anymore. So I don't ever want to feel stuck. That's what pushed me to do DIY, and that's why I'm such a big advocate for DIY, because again, we have no control over what companies do. They could change their ingredients, they could change their suppliers, and then the quality goes down. They could get bought out by another company, like a couple have been bought out by Mars, the candy bar company. So it's just, there's a lot that we don't have control over, whereas if we do DIY, we have more control over it. So that's my standpoint, and that's how I feel. With my carnivore diet, just to talk about a little bit of an extreme, I was a food glutton, I was addicted to foods. Even when I gave up sweets, I would still overeat things like bread, pistachios, right? Like high carb foods, turns into sugar, you get addicted to it, you feel hungry. And so I did have to go extreme. And the first month is different because I kind of weaned off by making beef bread eating yogurt and honey on that, and I ate a lot of cheese, too much cheese. That's just the first month. After that, I was very, very strict and just eating beef and butter, basically. Then I added back yogurt. Then I added back salmon. What else did I add back? I tried sardines. Rather give them to Jericho. Couldn't do it. Salmon I love. Salmon is very good. I make it fresh though. But I did have to go extreme in the beginning because it's like I was constantly thinking about food and overeating for no reason, just because I wanted food, not because I was hungry. So for me, I had to go extreme. But then I started adding foods back. Recently, I've been eating avocados, and I won't get too TMI, but my bathroom habits have been normal just from adding avocado back. So it's just about fine-tuning and tracking and figuring out what works best for your individual situation. Yes, all cats are carnivores, and I believe they need a high-moisture diet, high-protein diet, meat-based protein, low-carb diet, just because that's what they eat in their natural habitat. But we all have different situations, unique situations. Our cats have unique situations. For example, Jericho, I fed him a DIY raw meaty bones diet for a while. Chicken wings and chicken necks, he was chomping and chewing on those for the mental stimulation and teeth cleaning benefits. His left side, surgeon's word, I did have to get a dental eventually, but for the left side of his teeth, all of them are perfect. The surgeon said his left side is immaculate. Unfortunately, on the right side, he had plaque and tartar buildup and resorptive lesions. He couldn't chew on that side, so that's why the plaque and tartar built up. So he went in for the dental, got everything cleaned, had teeth extractions. So now I don't feel comfortable feeding chicken wings and chicken necks because he can't chew that as well. Whereas whole prey, the bones are much smaller, it's softer. I mean, one mouse is about the size or smaller than a chicken neck, but with a chicken neck, it's 50% bone, pretty much, like 46%, and then the rest is meat, whereas a mouse or day-old chick or quail or rat, that's the whole prey. So there's the tissue, the meat, the organs, and the bones. But it still provides that mental stimulation from chewing and the teeth cleaning benefits that I want. So for me, 50% whole prey works because it's giving him the chewing and the mental stimulation. The other 50% I do is DIY raw. But I'm not cutting up bits and pieces. I'm using pre-made, or pre-ground raw, I should say. So I get whole carcass ground rabbit and ground duck, meat, bones, and organs. And then I add my own supplements to it using a food formulator. So that's the diet that I have found that works for Jericho and that works for me. So I used to feed 100%, well actually no, I fed a little bit of whole prey. Mostly raw meaty bones, homemade diet. And now I feed differently because Jericho had teeth extractions and I feel more comfortable feeding whole prey. So he gets the mental stimulation and dental benefits from chewing on whole prey. And then with the ground raw food, I hide it on glass jar lids around the apartment. So he's not chewing on it, but he is getting mental stimulation from hunting for his food. So I think the best approach really is, yes, get rid of dry food, 100%. But find a diet that works based on your situation. You know, if you're super busy, you have less time, but you have a little bit more money, go with something that's pre-made, either raw or lightly cooked. Something that requires refrigeration and the freezer, you know, that's fresh food. Or you could do half that and half canned food. If you have more time and less money to spend, then DIY is going to be the best option for you, because whether it's raw or cooked, because you're going to spend more time putting it together, but it is the most cost-effective way to feed your cat. Anything pre-made, you're paying someone else to make it for you, it's going to cost more because there's more steps involved. Whereas DIY, it costs less, but you do spend more time putting it all together. And this is exactly what I teach all of my students in the Feline Foodie Bundle. This is a combination of all of my best cat feeding resources all in one place to really help you take complete control of your cat's diet and find what works best for you. And like I said, it doesn't have to be 100% raw or nothing. I have cooked recipes in there that are balanced for adult cats. I have raw boneless, I have raw meaty bones, And there's also cat food label cheat sheets and my top suggestions for pre-made food, whether it's freshly cooked or it's raw. And there's also a cat food database if those options don't work for you. That includes every type of feeding option. So it goes from, okay, you're feeding your cat dry food, here's how to get off of dry food. Gives you the tracking tools to weigh your cat, to make sure that you're feeding the right amount, and to track what works and what doesn't, and to really fine tune the best approach for your individual situation and your unique cat. And you can check out the Feline Foodie Bundle in the description. A lot of the people who have taken this course have said to me, like, I was so overwhelmed and stressed trying to figure it out on my own, and just having it in that step-by-step layout is just so much easier. And again, I give you the tools and the resources so that you can figure out what works best for your individual cat. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the Feline Foodie Bundle.